View from the Gutters, episode 90. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss the big book of Barry Ween, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 5745. I don't have to ask what episode this is today, because I already asked you earlier. It's episode 89, right? No, 90. Damn it! I was so prepared. I was like, I remember. No, it's episode 90.
It is episode 90.
I did.
And I'm Tobiah Panchin.
I'm Andrew Chard.
Brant Gillahan Eddy.
And I'm Cade Reynolds.
And no Joe Preddy this week. He is in cookie hell.
Yeah, but I'm back. I know everybody missed me.
I missed you most of all because I had to run the board while you were not here, and that shit is fucking annoying.
I did find the audio files to be very chopped up on some of the episodes I edited, where it was like, they clearly stopped and restarted like 10 times.
Well, that kept fucking up.
I know. It's temperamental, baby. It's temperamental, baby. Don't worry. Hold together. I feel like sometimes the sound gear is like the Millennium Falcon. Just like, just make it through the episode. It's okay. I don't know.
Insert Scotty parody here.
Yeah. Scotty wasn't on the Millennium Falcon.
No, not.
He was on the
Yes,
Star Destroyers.
I know. That's not what I meant. I meant about
Scotty...
holding things together.
Oh, okay.
Not about, dear Lord.
I like Geordie better.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Not sorry.
I kind of like, what's his name from Enterprise? Because he was Texan, and he was always just like, shit's pretty. Why?
I can fucking picture the guy's name. Or I can picture his face. I don't remember his name. Tucker,
yeah.
There it is.
Enterprise, a.k.a. Idiot Cowboys in Space.
All right. I thought that was Firefly, but...
No, those are smart cowboys.
Oh, okay.
Enterprise is idiot.
Yeah,
cowboys.
Jane's a genius.
Wow. In his own special way.
I like Geordie just because anytime anything's broken, they just like wave their hands over stuff, and it's like, future technology is fixed now. When like Scotty always seemed like he had like a tool in his hand and was hitting stuff.
Actually, I just did a bunch of Star Trek Next Generation binging. He actually does often. It's not so much that it's like wave hands over it. It's just that the computer itself ends up being the tool a lot more. So instead of like, and I mean, it makes sense.
He's got like an iPad and he's like
but
pressing a lot of...
that makes sense because that's probably what the future really will be like, as opposed to like, I'm going to go into my plumber's kit and grab a spanner wrench.
You don't know, man.
Yeah, like Scotty is in the Jeffries tube, like banging on shit with a wrench.
Yeah.
Geordie just has to like open up one of those cabinets and like move around the isolinear chips. Like putting them in different locations makes it better.
Yeah.
That's how that would work.
Well,
right.
you put one in one place,
like,
get the power to
I
go through it, use the power in the other
I've
place.
played what's that game? Like the plumbing game where you have to rearrange the pipes to make the water. Yeah. Well, no, that's drawing the thing. But...
Oh, I haven't played that game. It's just...
Obviously, if I take my graphics card out of one slot and swap it with my Ethernet card, that will make them both run better.
Clearly, you haven't been paying attention because isolinear chip's a little more sophisticated than your graphics card.
Also, one
Insert
powers...
eye roll here.
Yeah, and then the beryllium core of sufficient density has to power up, and that's how the grav lifts work.
God, I love that movie.
Me too. Anyway,
Stargate is obviously the most superior one because it's just fucking crystals, and they're like, I need a long purple one. Give me the purple one.
I just love Tony Shalhoub in Galaxy Quest so
Hey
much.
guys, they say that we might invert power to the deflector array and then push whatever away. Should we just
do that?
Just do that?
I love it when it's like Sam Rockwell's character, and he's like, "You can't just go out there, man. Is there even air?" And then Tony Shalhoub just like sniffs the air. He's like, "Seems okay."
Brilliant movie.
That is my favorite Star Trek movie, like hands down.
Yep, it's good.
Anyway, we're talking about sufficiently nerdy stuff in the actual book that we're supposed to be talking about today.
That also includes spaceship fixing and aliens.
And Star Trek references.
True.
So we're talking about Barry Ween this week.
We are, and
The big book.
I just want to get out of the way. My favorite line in this entire series, when Barry like runs out to fight the aliens, and the little ET looking dude, whatever the fuck his name is, he's like, "Fix the thing," and he's just like, "Ugh, a Mac." It's like, fuck you, alien.
This series,
that's kind of
man.
a joke that you have to have existed in 1999 to understand.
Yeah.
Things are kind of different now.
They
but-
really are. That is funny.
Yeah, I love this book, but there's some dated references in here.
Yeah. There's there's like a couple band references that I was like, wow, that's really doesn't
Just
really
like the
hold
whole
up.
thing in that same scene where Barry pulls out the lightsaber, and they're like, "Oh my god, everybody in this mega sector has one of those since the prequel."
Yeah.
No, that is one of my favorite lines of the book,
It
actually.
does, but I don't think it's quite the same thing that it was in 1999, where it's like there has been no new Star Wars in 25 years.
Well, only the first one had come out too, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was the one. I mean, that's the one with the Darth Maul fight where they're all flipping around for the first time, and it's a lot faster, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, I didn't know Star Wars could be awesome."
Yeah. But it wasn't
Even though
awesome.
it wasn't as awesome as the
Well, that
others.
scene was awesome.
That scene was awesome 100% because of the John Williams score. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah. Well, I
That
mean, it's
wouldn't-
not like everybody didn't rip that one track off and use it in like every fucking YouTube video for about 10 years.
Well, that song like specifically influenced like a shit ton of movie soundtracks for
absolutely.
like the next 4 or 5 years. As that happens with movies all the time, but
in any case, now
anyway.
that I've gotten my random interjection out, because I just had to fucking talk about that. Brent, you pitched Barry Ween.
I did.
What did you think of it?
I like it. It's
nailed it. 10
as
out
I
of 10.
flipped
Podcast over.
drop the mic. I don't know. It's fun. It's irreverent. It's full of geeky stuff. It's kind of everything you'd always hope about. Like, it's a really nice play on that like the boy genius concept.
Yeah.
Where it's like this guy's super. It's like, oh, what would happen if a little boy was as smart as everybody else? Well, if he was exposed to the same kind of pop culture stuff that we were exposed to, he would probably waste his time on things that you don't care about and solve all the world's problems and probably be really resentful of it at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about him. What I like about this series is that the biggest thing that I liked about this series at the time was that I had been exposed to Judd Winick initially through his autobiographical piece, Pedro and Me.
Yeah.
And so I knew that he was a person who was capable of writing stories that had a lot of emotional weight to them. And what I think that's actually really impressive to me about Barry Ween is that he's got really good character beats and good emotional content, even though most of what's happening is kind of ridiculous and
Yeah.
funny, like meant to be funny. I also, at the time when Barry Ween was coming out, it kind of was like, see, this is how amazing Judd Winick can be, and I feel kind of bad because I don't feel like his career has matched that promise,
Yeah.
at least as far as what he's done for primarily DC, who he's worked for.
What it actually, I think, brings up an interesting point about several years ago. It was probably like in 2008 or 9, right when The Walking Dead was really blowing up for the first time, and Robert Kirkman was a huge name. He released this video that was like the Robert Kirkman like method, where he was talking about everyone that's making comics over at Marvel and DC should basically leave Marvel and DC and come to Image and make creator-owned books, because creator-owned books are the future of comic books.
Right.
And he was saying that, like, with the exception of some guys, specifically guys like Bendis and, you know, Jeff Johns, he never says Jeff Johns because he's talking specifically about Marvel, but Jeff Johns could totally be thrown into that camp where, like, they're going to move up the ladder, the corporate ladder at their comic book company, and they're going to make editorial decisions as well as be a writer. They're going to help shape the universe. With the exception of those guys, most of the people at Marvel and DC are going to be forgotten by time, just because as comic book fans, we're not really good at remembering who wrote what stories in as far as like a larger character arc. So it's like, if I was like, oh, who wrote Wolverine 86 in the 90s? What was that guy? And like, no one's going to remember that, right? But Kirkman's argument was that people will always remember who wrote The Walking Dead. People will always remember who wrote Invincible. People always remember like who wrote Saga and Why the Last Man and stuff, because they're
Right.
more in the creator-owned mindset. And so something I think is unfortunate about the Judd Winick trajectory was like he went from creator-owned books
Right.
to Marvel and DC, and he's never broken out of the DC to go back to doing creator-owned stuff.
Yeah, and I wish I knew more about why, because I mean, he's often said in public like he's got more Barry Ween to write, for instance, and then he says he has other ideas. And so I just kind of am like, well, where is it?
The hard part and what Bendis criticized Kirkman about that statement was he was like, well, but Marvel and DC pay their writers really well, and they give them benefits, and they make them exclusive, and they give them really cushy, like, good
they give you a job,
and they give you it's paying the bills. Income. It's like
well,
it's not selling out. You know, it's making a real living.
Yeah, it's the difference between being an employee and being a freelancer.
Right.
Like you've got that steady paycheck.
Sorry.
And nothing against Judd Winick, but I'm sure that has a huge influence on.
Well, and some of his stuff's been really good. Like I know there's been.
I love Red Hood, the first Under the Hood. That's what it's called.
Yeah,
I liked that a lot. I liked his stuff on was it Green Arrow that he did.
He one of the longest runs of Green Arrow.
Yeah, he did Green Arrow. I mean, he did Batman, a run on Batman that I actually kind of liked.
Yeah,
I love that one too.
I think he's the only.
He did
one.
Batwing, which I actually really enjoyed, but
too.
I understand why it didn't get a large penetration because it's kind of a strange character.
I think he's the only person that wrote Jason Todd well.
Yeah, and unfortunately he had to insert... I think one of the things that hurt him as a writer was that he had a really great story about Jason Todd coming back and then had to insert shitty editorial decisions around Final Crisis. Yeah, attacking the multiverse with his bare hands or whatever the hell that shit is supposed to be.
Thank you, Dan DiDio.
And like, so it's like...
tastes so good.
And I mean, in some ways, maybe that's why he's, still at DC is because he's, I remember, I think it was, funny enough, we talk about it, this guy, Greg Rucka, who made a comment that like, to be a comic writer, you need to be three things. One or two of the following three things: reliable, nice, and a good writer. Mm-hmm. And basically, if you have any two of them, because he wasn't trying to be disparaging. He was making a comment like, "Why aren't the greatest writers always the ones writing?" He's like, "Well, sometimes people are reliable and nice, and that's what gets them." The paycheck because comics need to come out on time.
Right.
And I almost wonder sometimes if like Winick has found his groove with DC to be like, well, it's not mine. I don't have a strong attachment to it. I'll kind of work with whatever you give me and I'll be the reliable guy.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe
books are always like, well, I don't want to say always pretty good, but a lot of his stuff is really good. Yeah.
What?
I actually haven't read
New 52 Catwoman
at DC, but he has his share of detractors.
You didn't read Under the Hood?
No.
Oh, that's the one where Jason Todd comes back. That's a good one. Mm-hmm. You should check that out.
I definitely should.
I have all the singles if you want to borrow.
But as we've said in previous instances, I think that Barry Ween works on a level that his superhero stuff doesn't because it's his own creation.
Yeah, sure.
And he
that's
can do whatever
point.
He wants with it, and he's not limited by the existing cosmos, what other people are doing, what editorial tells him to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fact, I think that he shines in that kind of freedom in the way that Grant Morrison does.
Right.
Where his licensed stuff, his superhero work might be good, but it's never as good as what he's doing when he's by himself.
Right, and that's ultimately what I was trying to say, is that it's just like, this series has so much promise to me.
Yeah.
And what really bums me out about having read this again is that Volume 4 ends on such a crucially, like, emotional place, where it's like, the thing that I found really impressive about this series is that in each volume, he kind of ramps up the science and the mayhem and the fun, but he also ramps up like understanding the humanity behind Barry Ween, who's kind of an asshole.
But at the same time, he's an asshole that spends a lot of his time like solving world hunger,
right, and helping
like,
problems, and being really dismissive about it because to him it's not that big of a deal, and that's what I like, is that he actually creates, in a very simplistic way, this really sophisticated narrative about Barry Ween, but by the end of Volume 4, like, he's gone through these incredibly horrible, emotional, wrenching things. We end with him basically collapsing in torment, and it's like, where will our hero go from there?
And I always found that last page kind of ambiguous. Like, I've never been quite sure how to take it. Is he reacting to everything that we saw throughout that last story?
Yeah.
Or is he reacting to the unseen events of his second trip, basically through that time loop?
No, I assume based on the panels that lead up to it, where he's clearly like got everything packed, ready to go, that he's basically spending the time he needs to resolve the things as cleanly as possible, and then having to come back because right before the big fight at the end of Volume 4, he says to Sarah, she's like, my life is hard here. It may not be hard for you. And he's like, fuck you. Do you know how hard my life is? Do you know how often I have to think about the probabilities that X will happen and Y would happen and how often it'll happen and why it'll happen and blah, 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 blah. So I think that the emotional tone is meant to be like, this is a guy who's constantly plagued by having to deal with the ramifications of what could happen, and then the worst possible thing that he could contemplate does happen, and so he basically puts himself on emotional nitro to go do what needs to be done to keep it from happening, but you can only live in that way for so long, especially if you're constantly moving in your mind, before you basically just kind of collapse into a flubbering thing, which is why it's like, where's my Volume 5 so I can see what happens to be like, maybe he has a revelation that he has to do certain things, or maybe he kind of goes a little nuts and starts doing things like really intense, or maybe it just kind of picks back up and it's just meant to be an emotional beat and we move on. But instead I've kind of had this 10-year coda thing where I'm just like, what happens next?
Yeah.
Is Barry okay?
In my ideal world, Carrie gets done in Antarctica, moves into Barry's town, and they become best friends.
I do like the crossover.
A big brother, big sister, big brothers, big sisters mentorship program.
Yeah.
Of Barry and Carrie.
Yeah, that was cute.
Yeah, it's the color special at the end of the Big Book of Barry Ween.
Yes.
It's called Whiteout.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was not in the 4 paperback trades that were available for a really long time.
What came out after
that?
those?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not if you have those books, as I do, you don't have that special.
Yeah, you get the single. You'll find it.
I don't want to rebuy it.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting... Barry Ween is a very interesting spin on the trope of the boy genius. And that's what I really like about it. I think it's what Brant kind of brought up is like, this is kind of more what an actual kid genius would be like.
Probably.
And less Dexter's Lab, less, I mean, this is pre-Jimmy Neutron, but, less Jimmy Neutron and more, because the problems in Jimmy Neutron and in Dexter's Lab with the aside being like when a giant monster shows up in Tokyo and he has to like have his family drive giant robots to fight them and stuff. They're usually small problems. They're like the problems seem to be localized really around like Dexter ruining his life or like revealing to his parents that he's a super genius, or like same with Jimmy Neutron and stuff. And something that I like about Barry Ween is the very first story he rips a hole in the fabric of time, and it's basically like, well, we really could fuck this up here, so hopefully this doesn't go wrong.
Have you watched much Jimmy Neutron?
Yeah.
Okay, so my sense of it, because I've only seen like a tiny little bit, is that a lot of it is he invents something, things go horribly wrong, and he has to work to fix it.
Yeah, that
like
happens
figure
a lot.
out how to do the thing to make it okay again. And I actually have what I think is an interesting revelation about Barry Ween this time, which is that he never really seems to struggle with how am I going to fix this. Like, he always has a plan in place. Like, I know exactly what to do to solve this problem. And a lot of times he's thrown complications because he doesn't have the tools that he needs, or because he has to not kill people because Jeremy's around,
right,
or something like that. But he always like has a plan in place, knows exactly what to do. And so many of his problems are solved by, I'm going to fucking kill this and everything around it and then just rebuild later.
Yeah, and I think that's revealed in the second story with the dinosaur thing, where he's like going to shoot Jeremy in the head, and then he can't. It's like you see a little bit of the humanity of Barry come through. When it's like the problem would have been so much more easily solved by him just shooting dinosaur Jimmy in the head, and he knows that.
Right. Because he's a ruthless pragmatist because he's so smart. But
his heart comes through and he can't do it.
Right, and the revelation that I had is that I feel like Barry Ween is this weird juxtaposition of Superman and Batman. He's got the power of Superman, and to the extent that his mind makes it so that 90% of things are just not a challenge to him. He's not threatened in any way, and he could instantly resolve this situation with brutal force should he choose to do so. But where Clark is kind of this idealist, farm boy, Barry is much more of the ideology of Batman. Like, I've come up with 100 different plans. on how to deal with every conceivable situation. I'm constantly watching for threats. I'm constantly dealing with problems. Like, nobody else is fucking operating on the level that I am because I'm dealing with shit that most of you haven't even conceived of. And it's this weird kind of mating of the two.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's a reflection of I mean, I think one of the basic premises, if you're really that smart, you're not going to be Pollyanna. You really couldn't be.
Yeah.
And you would feel like your emotional landscape is probably really complex. Like, I love the fact that I can't remember exactly what circumstance it is, who he's talking to exactly. Maybe it's the Sasquatch girl, but he was suspiciously absent from Volume 4, which was unfortunate because she's one of my favorite characters, even though I can't recall her name. But somebody's like, why do you spend your time with Jeremy? He's like, because, I just gave him a fucking package of Oreos, and that, blows his goddamn mind.
He's talking to Sarah.
That was Sarah.
Right. That's when they run into giant gorilla guy.
Bizarro.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Bizarro.
Bizarro. I don't know how you say it.
That's a rule. When they run into him the first time and they're walking to the
that's
portal.
right. And he's he's riding a giant monkey.
And Sarah's like, why didn't you tell me you were smart? And he's like, look at Jeremy. He knows because he doesn't care.
Yeah, I like that too. It's the kind of the reason that he has the secret identity of being just a regular kid is not just so he doesn't have to go to work for NASA or something. It's because people will treat him differently if they know he's a super genius, and Jeremy doesn't care. So
yeah, and I think that there are similarities with Superman there as well. Why does he have the Clark Kent identity?
Yeah, I mean,
according to Quentin Tarantino, that's his commentary on the nature of man. Oh wait, sorry.
I think that there are some merits to that thought process. It's not completely without merit. I don't necessarily agree with it.
Well, I mean, I've talked about numerous times on the podcast how I disagree with the Quentin Tarantino theory of the Clark is the mask for Superman, because I think they're both the mask for the hometown Smallville Clark, which is where he gets to feel the most himself.
Right, because he can lift a tractor and...
Right, and he's there with Mom and
pie.
Pa. That's his home, and when you take that away, that's when you get Clark that is he's fractured by these two fake personalities, and he kind of has to reestablish, can I actually feel like the real Clark when I'm around Lois? That's the thing that I think is interesting about Superman, Kal-El's emotional spectrum. But
I think it's true to a certain extent of all superheroes.
Yeah.
Certainly it's true of Batman. You have
absolutely.
Batman, the character, Bruce Wayne, the character that he plays in front of everyone else, and then the person that he is when he's in the Batcave with Alfred.
Well, you mentioned to me one time when we were talking about the animated series, and one of your favorite things about it is that Kevin Conroy uses different voices when he's different characters, and he uses a different voice when he's Bruce Wayne, he uses a different voice when he's Batman, and he uses a different voice when he's Bruce Wayne, but he's talking to Alfred.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's I'd never really noticed that before, but that attention to detail of the creative staff of Batman the Animated Series is why that show was so good.
Absolutely. And I think that that's true to a greater or lesser extent of most superheroes.
Yeah.
At least the ones who are closeted. Is that you got their their superhero identity. You have their secret identity who is pretending to be a normal person.
Right.
And then you have the person that they actually are, who has superpowers, but isn't necessarily the identity of the superhero.
Right, and how often do they get to be that character? Which is something that I think Kurt Busiek explored in Astro City when he does the first story about the Samaritan, and most of the Samaritan's day is spent as either the journalist reporter or the Samaritan as the Superman ideal, but when he feels most alive is when he's just flying, when he gets to just be alone and not doing either of those things. And he's counting the minutes he gets to be in the air every day. And I was like, it was such a beautiful story, because I think it illustrates that the time that the superhero spends alone is the time when they get to be the most themselves.
And I wonder which it is for Barry. Because, he's the Barry that he is in public when he goes to school or when he's with his parents. He's pretending to just be a normal kid.
Yeah.
And then there's the Barry who he is when he's by himself and he's doing those ruthlessly pragmatic things that you presume that he does.
Right.
And then there's the Barry that he is when he's hanging out with Jeremy, who I think is a different, discreet person.
Yeah.
And I wonder how... Because, we very rarely get to see Barry by himself.
Yeah.
I wonder how different those people really are.
Yeah, I think
you get the sense that he is struggling to hold on to his humanity.
It's interesting to take the kind of boy genius trope and like mash it into superheroism in a kind of way where it's like the secret identity is when they're pretending to be dumb, and because they are kind of saving the world often. I mean, often it's from shit that they did, but a lot of times it's not. Like asteroids will threaten the Earth, and Dexter has to shoot rockets at it or something. But I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think that there's probably a little bit of the real Barry everywhere, because I like the Barry that comes through when he is like, what's her name? The girl?
Sarah.
In the first story that she's in, when he's like first talking to her, and he has no idea how to talk to her, and he just says like the dumbest shit ever. And
I hate seeing good hair pull.
Yeah, and is not listening to his friend later when they're on the bus, and he's like, I have to pee, and he's like, just pee, and he's like, you're not even listening to me, are you? I like that. It adds a lot of humanity to the character. So
Well, Winick does really good dialogue.
he does. There's some good quippy dialogue in this book.
Yeah, sorry, I was just flipping through volume 3, and it's when they find the. It's when Barry's parents get kidnapped by the Sasquatch, and of course, Jeremy's like, Sasquatch what? And he's like, they're not actually like something else. They're just fucking Homo sapiens that wander around drunk and are covered in hair. And then I flip forward, and it's they wander into the hidden Sasquatch village, and Barry's like, hey, Cousin Nate, where's your chief, your Chala? And the Sasquatch is like, what, you talking to me, man? Oh, our Chala, you mean Dennis? He's not around. He's like on a sabbatical or something. And it's like, Barry's just like pissed off. But I don't know. Yeah, I love he does a really good job, because of course he does the art too of like, making characters really expressive. Like, I feel like when I'm watching the Sasquatch, I can tell they're all like weird California stoner surfer guys and girls, and like I feel like the menacing people have menace. And
And again, I haven't read a lot of Winick's DC stuff, but he doesn't draw at DC. He's just writing.
Yeah.
And I miss Winick's art.
Yeah, Winick's art's great.
Yeah, like I love the way that his characters kind of shift back and forth from being more detailed to kind of being more cartoony.
Oh yeah, he's a phenomenal cartoonist.
And I love those the cartoony faces that he draws.
Yeah.
Where they're like a lot of times they're just kind of blank, or maybe have like a little bit of a smile. And I don't know why, but I just like they make me feel good looking at them.
To me, they're so reminiscent of reading comic strips as a kid. Like
it reminds me of like Calvin and Hobbes.
Absolutely.
Or
And Peanuts and all that stuff.
that's where he started, right?
Yeah, I mean, like he wanted
Frumpy the Clown.
Yeah, he wanted to be that.
Yeah, when he was on The Real World.
Yeah.
He was trying to get a syndicated comic strip deal.
Yeah.
I believe.
Which was Frumpy the Clown.
And I wish, in a lot of ways, like there was more of this, because I feel like this is kind of true to what he had originally intended with that. Because this feels very comic strippy in a way, just because it's so animatorly. And I love the expressions and the art and the dialogue and
just the random like quippy asides where Barry is talking about like random things that have happened, and I just open to a random page, and it's like the inadvertent incident when I gave hippopotamuses the reproductive capabilities of rats, and it's just Barry there with this look on his face. He's like, "Stop humping, you fat fucks!" And there's just a million fucking hippopotamuses there. It's like that's just hilarious.
yeah.
That's just funny. It's just random, like one panel joke, and it's hilarious.
I like the big-eyed faces too, like when people are surprised or whatnot. The first page in Adventures in Barry City, and Jeremy Ramirez's eyes are just like big fucking things.
Yeah.
And then like the one with the Chala, and he kills the one Chala, and the other guy is just like big fucking eyes, and it's just that is awesome.
Yeah, he's that's that cartoonist mentality, man. I think he's a phenomenal cartoonist, and I know some people throw that word around like, oh, it looks cartoony as a dirty word, but
no, you need cartoony.
Dude, it's a skill. It's a skill to make things look this expressive and that cartoonist mentality, I think, and
to know who the characters are is another skill. Like with a lot of cartoonists, you can see different characters that all look the same.
Yes.
And not so with this.
Yeah.
I forgot. I keep forgetting this every time. I'm like, why did Judd Winick not do more? He actually had a show on Cartoon Network for 3 years, which I think is one of the reasons why he wasn't doing as much. Yeah, The Life and Times of Juniper Lee, which ran for 3 seasons.
I vaguely remember that.
I've never heard of this, but now I'm interested. So I did talk to Joe a little, and I asked if there was anything he wanted me to say for him. And he's just like, no, I mean, just this is hands down Judd Winick's best work.
I agree.
And that
with
was
that.
it.
I agree. This is my favorite thing of his that I've read.
And he is sad that Judd Winick went from this to Catwoman. Like, apparently, like, there's none of this Judd Winick to be found.
Yeah, I feel like that's an unfortunate case of editorial.
Well, I was also talking to Adam about this a little bit because, of course, he's read it and enjoyed it. And the comment that he made is that so much of Winick's later work is so kind of cynical and violent. And I think that you can see elements of that in this, but they're tempered by the more cartoony, lighthearted elements of it.
Yeah.
And I think without that tempering element, I think he drifts a little bit too far in the other direction.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that Under the Hood is it's extremely violent and it's extremely cynical as a Batman story. It is 100% a story about failure and abandonment in a lot of ways, and I think that makes for an awesome narrative sometimes, but that tonal shift from this is a big change, but I think the problems with Catwoman I have are not with Judd Winick's writing. And I think that I still continue to say that I like the stuff that he does at DC. I wish that he would do more Barry Ween and more stuff like this. I want him to do creator-owned work.
He's got a book coming out.
regardless,
So
yeah.
apparently he's working on a creator-owned series of books for Random House where he will illustrate called High-Low, which apparently he started working on because his kid, who's like 7 or 8 now, was like, I want to read your work, Dad. And he's like,
Here's Catwoman.
But yeah, so
Wait.
he's been doing work for DC off and on, but like he apparently is the head writer for an animated superhero series on Hulu. He wrote the screenplay for Batman Under the Red Hood, the actual director DVD thing.
Yeah. Which
He had
in
Life
which
and
is
Times of Jennifer Lee
interesting
for 3 years. Like he's been working, just not necessarily specifically in comics.
because the complaint we were having earlier about Under the Hood, in which Superboy punches through the walls of the universe, surprisingly is not in the animated movie.
I can't
That's
believe
so weird. So I think it's nice that he got a chance to go back and rewrite exactly what that should have always been and probably was before editorials like, wait, but Infinite Crisis. So
Fucking super.
Let me guess. Something about a Lazarus pit.
you know it. It's Batman. Come on.
Yeah.
It's always going to be Lazarus Pits.
Well, and it made so much sense because the whole thing was that Talia found Jason, and it was like, I found him after he was ejected from his grave when Superboy punched the world. And you're like, no, you mean when you threw him in a Lazarus pit? No, when Superboy punched the world.
Yeah.
Hey, hate you, comic book. I light you on fire.
But I just want to hit this point again for a second. Like, I think that you can get something incredibly beautiful when you have a creator who is playing against type.
Yeah.
And the reference that I always like to make, and I guess this is kind of a personal thing, like 10 years ago, I was running a D&D game back when I was living in Pennsylvania. And I had just made friends with this guy named Lightning McAwesome, who was like fresh out of high school.
On his birth certificate.
No, he has a different name. He swore for years that he was going to change his name to Lightning McAwesome, so I still call him that out of friendship.
Oh, that's
But he was like fresh out of high school. He was kind of like a delinquent, like got into lots of fights. Was like just starting to get into kind of like nerdier things like comic books and like cartoons and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And he really liked to play like that, dark, violent kind of character. and we were starting a new game, and he's like, I don't know what to play. And I was like, you need to play Paladin. He's like, I don't want to play a Paladin. They're like all good and like upstanding. And I'm like, that's why you need to play it.
They love cheese.
Like you need to figure out how to wrap your brain around this character. And to this day, that was one of the greatest characters that I've ever seen in a role-playing game, bar none. Because the problem with Paladin so often is that people are like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do the upstanding good thing, and so I'm going to do this. Or like, I'm going to act like I just have a stick up my ass.
Yeah.
And the thing is that he genuinely wrestled with doing the right thing. He's like, we would get into an encounter and somebody would be a dick to him, and he'd be like, I'm going to fucking kill him. I'm going to kill him. And I'm like, you're a paladin, right? Like, you're supposed to do the good thing. And he's like, but I want to fucking murder this person. Like, I want to do it. And he would, like, genuinely struggle. Like, I don't know what to do in this situation. I don't know. And it was the greatest thing because you could actually see that conflict playing out inside of his mind. And so, like, ever since then, I've loved watching people have to struggle to play against type, to try and wrap their brain around doing something different than what they would normally do. And I think one of the reasons why Barry Ween works so very well is that Judd Winick seems to have that affinity for the dark and cynical and violent, and he is intentionally playing against that in this work. Barry is trying not to be that person.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what makes it work so well. On top of the fact that you just have that juxtaposition of, here's a 10-year-old who curses like a sailor.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I love the humor in the book, too, and it's something that is definitely lacking from a lot of the DC stuff, is it's not meant to be funny because it's meant to be superheroes. And
superheroes should be allowed to be funny.
No, superheroes, no jokes, no more jokes. DC banned all jokes, and that's how superheroes should be.
It sounds like the end of deal.
Yeah. No, it was Warner Brothers. It was the Warner Brothers. They came down and they're like, there aren't going to be any jokes in any new DC
I refuse
movies.
to believe that Yakko or Wacko would ever say that.
Yeah.
Are they secretly the heads of Warner Brothers?
Thank you for laughing at that, Cade.
Yeah, they are. They are. What about Dot?
Well, you said the Warner Brothers. She's
That's-
the Warner sister.
That's true. Yeah, there was that weird press release where they like came out and said that they weren't going to have jokes in any of their DC movies. And I think that's kind of, we see that in the New 52 a lot, that it's all like very heavy-hand, grim, darky, whatever. Yeah, exactly, right?
League.
And we're seeing that relax and go away now a lot across DC. We're seeing stuff like Gotham Academy, and the new Batgirl appears to be more lighthearted, and there's definitely books with jokes in them still. So I don't know.
Well, it's not the first time that DC has just been terribly, horribly wrong, and I'm gonna lift a line I think from Greg Rucka here, talking about the edict that there should be no marriages.
Yeah.
In comic books because superheroes aren't supposed to be happy.
Right.
Who the fuck thinks that just because you're married, you're going to be happy?
Only Dan DiDio.
Like, anybody who thinks that has obviously never been married.
Like Dan DiDio.
Is he not married?
I don't think so. Who would marry Dan DiDio?
Dan DiDio.
That's true.
He's married to Dan DiDio from Earth 2.
You mean Earth 1?
Thank you, Superboy Prime.
Earth Prime.
I think what WB was trying to say was that they intended their films to have a more serious tone.
No, I mean, it's exactly what they were saying. They were basically coming out and being like, look, Marvel's movies are so lighthearted and fun. We'll be the opposite of that. And then you watch the new Age of Ultron trailer and be like, yes, all Marvel movies look like so much fun.
Well, come on. They're singing the song from Pinocchio.
That movie's going to be dark as fuck. Okay, well, that's the Empire Strikes Back of the Avengers trilogy.
God, I hope so.
Well, it's going to be.
Which is kind of silly in so much that it's like, really, everybody, we have to have our second movie be the dark one, but that's fine.
Well, you got to, it's the art.
So what are
it's
the Ewoks going to be in Avengers? Are the Skrulls going to be Ewoks?
No,
in
it's going to
Avengers 3?
be what what are the
Chimelians.
No, it's the guys that were they were just in Original Sin, but they're also in Next Wave, and they're like from the dim dimension.
Oh, yeah.
The mindless ones?
Yes. Those will be the Ewoks.
Presumably they're going to show up in the Doctor Strange movie that, as of this recording, Benedict Cumberbatch is rumored to have been casted for.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Cumberbatch.
Cumberbatch, one of those.
And they're in negotiations. It has not been officially confirmed.
Maybe by the time this is out, it will be.
Yeah, maybe.
I will either be prescient or wrong.
Yeah.
Cumberbach. What?
Bumper dink, cumber snatch.
Whatever.
Wow, Hubba-dink?
Like, it's the first time that we've gotten a name wrong on the show.
I haven't.
Well, that's true.
That's probably not true.
Just because you have a ban on saying names.
Oh, that's true, too.
His name is pronounced Judd Winick.
No, I don't know. I think that sometimes in a character arc, the second act should be dark.
I don't dispute that. I just think it's like everybody's like, great. I'm always looking forward for the Empire part, and it's like, are we so? The whole point of Star Wars and of its own original creation was that it was kind of groundbreaking. So, do you think by ceaselessly copying its tone and momentum,
Yeah. No, I think what a lot of people are talking about Empire is like the first movie is very much fun. It's an adventure story. It's very cookie cutter and kind of built off of a lot of the ideas from other stuff. And Empire took all those same characters that you know and love from the first movie, and then made them into actual characters for the first time. Like they have, faults, dilemmas, and desires, and they make mistakes, and it made these archetypal heroes into characters.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people talk about when they talk about Empire. That movie is also the darkest of the three, and it has the ending that is like, I don't know if they're going to win. And then you watch the first 4 minutes of Return of the Jedi, and you're like, oh, it's all going to end up fine in the end.
I don't know if that's true.
Oh,
First 4 minutes of Return of the Jedi is...
Whenever Luke shows up and he's doing
but
that
actually takes longer than that. And that's kind of dark.
Yeah.
Until,
I think that Star Wars, at least within our generation, has kind of been influential in that way, where it's kind of like baby's first deep action movie. Like... Baby's first deep action.
Maybe.
Fair enough.
Most people watch the first Star Wars movie, like, when they're pretty young. Like, it's action, it's adventure, like, it's on their level.
Yeah.
And then you step up to The Empire Strikes Back, and, like, shit gets real for kind of probably the first time for you, because you've been watching all, like, kids' movies. Like, it's that very transitional point between I'm watching G and PG movies, and now I'm suddenly stepping up to the next league.
We're about to watch Lethal Weapon next.
Ooh.
I think that was the first movie that I saw that was like, I am not old enough to watch this movie.
Why is that lady naked? Why is she climbing on the balcony?
Oh,
Why is there white powder on the... Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
One day I watch the Great Chipmunk Adventure every day for a month, and then the next day I watch The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. And suddenly I exist in a different conceptual universe.
wonder in a world with Pixar and things like that have a little bit more of a...
Fucking dark.
Intense emotional tones, if Star Wars will be quite the revelation for my own son.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wonder with the evolution of Star Wars and the evolution of media in the past 30 years, like, are kids today going to have the same relationship with those movies?
Well, no, obviously, because they have to start with fucking Jar Jar, and then they want to die.
Well, and I gotta tell you though, this is the thing, right? And this is what's coming up a lot within Star Trek. Star Wars fandom. My son will watch the original trilogy, probably between the ages of 8 and 10, let's say conservatively, and he will probably think they are awesome.
Yeah.
He will think Jar Jar Binks is funny, if not mildly inappropriate. He will think that, lightsaber ballet that doesn't actually look like a realistic fight when you actually watch it after 100 times is good. He will be excited. He will be
and kids actually love those.
And then he may even watch the original trilogy and be like, why does it look so dingy and weird and cheap? And I'll be like,
why is it so slow?
Because
why does it look dumb?
Because Daddy's old. Oh. Yeah. So it's like, it's so hard to know.
Well, also, all of the, well, not all, but a lot of the expanded universe that's available for kids, i.e. television shows and cartoon shows and stuff, take place in the prequel universe rather than in the original trilogy.
Well, no, I mean,
with the exception of Rebels,
which is really the big one.
Right, well, they did the Clone Wars for
that was
6 years.
But that was in the prequels.
Right, that was in the time of the prequels. And now the very next series is in between the prequels and the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's the last 2 series. Like, you have nothing else to really compare.
Well, and the one before that was also Clone Wars.
The Tartakovsky one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't count.
Well, how does that not count? That's
well,
the best
because it
one.
doesn't officially count.
That's also the best one, though.
It's not in the... I actually don't... I like the newer Clone Wars more, and it's the only one that's officially canon.
If I cared about what was canon, I wouldn't read all the comics.
They're both good, but they're very different. and actually play off of each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you see kind of the same characters across the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say something, but...
Didn't Disney come out and say nothing in the Star Wars thing as canon except for the films?
And
The
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. And
Yes.
now
Oh.
Rebels.
But which Clone Wars?
The second one.
Yeah.
The
The one that was
CG
run by the same
animated
guy
one.
who's the showrunner now for Rebels.
Not the same showrunner.
Was that the...
It's Greg Wiseman
The
is the
second one,
showrunner on
the computer-generated
Rebels.
animation-based one.
They share the same art director.
Yeah, okay. Well, I thought he was a showrunner now. Whatever.
He might be a co-producer, but Wiseman is like the head guy, at least for the first season. Apparently, he's been fired from the second season, and we'll have a new showrunner.
Interesting. But yeah,
I haven't watched Rebels yet, but I heard it was good.
I've heard it's all right. I just got my head wrapped around the animation for Clone Wars, so Rebels is a little more cutesy, and I'm like,
I'm kind of ambivalent. I want to see where it goes. It has good elements. Like, it feels like the original trilogy. Like, you get that vibe.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that it's going to be kind of, like, more aimed at the younger audience. Yeah. Like, the Clone Wars was, like, in its first season.
Yeah.
Before they really started
although, quite frankly, as somebody who now has a young child, even the first season, vastly inappropriate for young children. When the third episode is about General Kluploon and his troopers having to eject themselves into emergency escape pods, and the droids are cutting them open and ejecting those guys into space, that ain't something that's like, oh, hey, I should just let my 8-year-old watch this.
Well, I mean, your son is 4.
My son is 4. I may feel differently about it by the time he's 8, but I still am like, do I want to just let my son...
He'll have like an iPhone and a Facebook
well,
account
yeah,
by
I
the
mean,
time he's 8.
Yes, but I'm still saying, like, it's kind of it's a pretty intense assumption that not just like, oh, the Cobra shoots the tank and everyone jumps out.
That's true.
No. They literally cut the things open and you see them ejected into space as they yell, horrified as they die. Like, I was like, okay. So literally I start this series and I'm like, okay, Clone Wars, it's going to be kind of more for kids. Like, that's fine. Like, I can deal with that. I like kids stuff. I'm totally fine. I'm like, holy shit, they're ejecting him into space. I don't know how I'd feel about my young son watching this. And like, I know parents who've let their 4-year-olds watch
this turn into BSG?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just like, holy shit. I mean,
that series gets incredibly dark.
Yeah.
Especially once they start introducing, like, the Witches of Dathomir and shit.
I mean, it's a great series, but...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you came and told me that it was supposed to be for 8-year-olds, I'd be like, I don't know about that.
Well, I got the sense that it was one of those shows that tried to age with its audience. Like, if you were watching the first season when you were, like, 8 or 9 years old, you'd be, like, 13 or 14 by the time you got to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that... Like I said, some of the content, even for an 8-year-old, I won't know for a few more years whether or not that's completely appropriate. But I feel like it also was trying to do... Like, I mean, Batman the Animated Series was clearly made with the understanding in mind that they were just as likely to have early teens sitting there watching it as you were little kids. Mm-hmm. So, who knows? I remember I was going to say something, and this is going to take us all the way back to another topic, and it's just my one word of kind of like,
Go for it.
Which is the Avengers trailer.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've read that I agree with is that I really do hope, like, I like me some Joss Whedon, but that guy tends to amp shit up to 11 sometimes in ways that are really kind of hard to stomach. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, everybody, do you love this character? Are you about to see them experience joy and complete, affirmation of life? Well, I'm going to fucking kill them. Now, I don't think he'll be able to get away with that in an Avengers movie per se, but you never know. And I just think it's like, I hope that there were enough other forces involved to calibrate that appropriately.
I think it'll be appropriate, and I think it'll feel right, and then probably will not be... You probably won't see, like, Tony Stark get decapitated on screen and be like, oh my god, what just happened? Right. However, they have come out and said the Avengers will be different in the next Avengers movie. This will change the Avengers lineup, and it will not be the same Avengers in the third movie that you saw in the second movie. Things in the Marvel Universe will change dramatically because of Age of Ultron. And that would be what movie they have not announced for, the next wave of Marvel movies is Iron Man 4. And Robert Downey Jr., every time he goes on an interview, makes jokes about that movie. Because I don't think he can tell you that there isn't going to be one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Because, I mean, they could just easily make Iron Man 4 and have it be about Iron Patriot. Like,
well, exactly, right? But he's not going to be in
Or
it.
Rescue.
Maybe.
Because the jokes he always makes is like, oh, I'll be in this if X director directs.
Yeah, but you also know that he's in Captain America 3. So
Right.
And there's a rumor that
Not
he'll be in Avengers 3.
necessarily.
What?
Well, he's in scenes in Captain America 3. He was there
Oh.
for filming, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Well,
been officially
he's-
signed to star in Captain America 3.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Okay, what I read was
their
that he
version
was
of Civil War.
producing it, but that he wasn't going to be in it.
Oh, I heard that he entered a contract to be in it.
No,
Oh,
they
okay.
they have. It's been at least rumored, if they haven't explicitly said, Captain America 3 is going to be a Civil War,
Right.
Right.
like the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of that.
Oh,
but
wait.
going back to what Char was saying, like
They also haven't
in the
announced
Avengers
Thor
lineup,
3.
like Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor quit and leave entirely, and there's a period where the Avengers is Vision, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Hawkeye, and like that is the Avengers.
Well,
Right.
and others.
And
It's
they're
very rarely
introducing
that's only
She-Hulk,
four of them.
like
She-Hulk.
all those characters
Goliath.
will be introduced and starring
Jack
in
of
this
Hearts.
movie.
I also am really hopeful that the Ulysses Claw fan theory is correct, that
Yes.
we will see Black Panther in this movie.
Well, and then there's a high-profile South Korean actress who's apparently attached to Avengers, and so there's lots of speculation because they think somebody did a screen cap and there's a character standing next to Nick Fury or somebody, and they're like, "Who is that?" They think it's this actress, and then like, "Well, then who is she?" And is she just some throwaway character for the film, or is she some other character that was? Because that's one of the big complaints is like, how can Captain America 3 be about Civil War? There's only like 7 of them, and everybody knows who they are. It's
Right.
like, well, you've already got Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, and a bunch of other stuff coming out, and it's not like you can't just be like, there's fucking a million of them all of a sudden.
Well, there was a rumor that there was going to be like some big group shot, like we're going to get bigger, and that introduces basically just like a giant room full of characters. That Captain Marvel was going to be one of them, and that they actually pulled her out of that scene because they wanted to save her introduction and do it correctly.
Well, and also don't forget we have 4 Netflix series
right,
that are all tied
right,
in
and those
too.
characters all could potentially
And
be in there.
they should all show up in Captain America 3 if
That'd
it
be
is
awesome.
in truly going to be Civil War. And you've got Mockingbird from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean,
You've got
there-
Howard the Duck.
You have Howard the Duck. Don't
And-
forget about his pivotal role in Civil War. If you don't remember, go back and read it. It's there.
Yep.
One shot, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there was a one shot with Howard the Duck. That is true.
He just showed up in Axis.
Yeah, he's really important.
Well, now they got all that legal wrangling dealt with. They can parade him around again.
So,
Yeah.
is there anything else that we want to say about Barry Ween?
Give this to everyone.
Unless they're really
Legitimately.
sensitive about content, then don't do that because
Well,
they will not like you.
Do it, but then you'll weed out your weak friends. No,
Honestly, this is one of the books that I use to hook people on comics.
Yeah.
Like, you've never read a comic book before. How do you feel about something that's really funny and has a moderate amount of cursing in it?
to be honest,
Check this out.
I think that a lot of what's on TV is worse than this as far as like content goes.
I think that the biggest thing that might rub some folks the wrong way is there's some overtly crude sexual humor.
Right.
That like is like that one weird like special spot where where certain people get uncomfortable,
Yeah.
even if they're into like crude humor. Like
Right.
sometimes the sex stuff just makes people be like, whoa.
That's true, and I think
Yeah.
that is one aspect where this is a little bit dated, is that there is some crude humor which was, I think, more acceptable then, that isn't necessarily going to fly as well today, given that there's a greater level of sensitivity in regard to
Yeah, full
homosexuals, transgender,
Well, and-
women generally in comic books.
Full disclosure, I had this stack sitting on my kitchen table, and of course it was kind of lightly fanned out, but volume 4 is sitting on the top of my kitchen table, which of course shows the very breasty and scantily clad Sarah, who's been aged forward, and my wife looks at it and is just kind of like, ugh, really? And I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of part of the story, but like I even that coming out of my mouth, I'm like, yeah, I don't know why even Winick felt it necessarily give me a sexualized 18-year-old and a Sheena thing as pure cheesecake on the front of this story about smart kids.
20-year-old.
Oh yeah, I guess she'd be 20. But then of course she pointed out that on the cover of volume 3 that in 12-year-old or whatever has like a bare midriff, and she's just like,
And
ugh.
she's also rotating her head like
Yeah, in a really
Face
weird
always
way.
looks weird in this book, by
115
the way.
degrees, like over the back of her shoulder,
Right.
without twisting her spine in any
So
way.
even Winick is not immune to some of the forces that exhibit
No.
themselves. In the...
And her head always looks weird. Can I say that? Her face
yeah.
always looks weird.
It's, you know what it is? It's the cheekbones.
Yeah. It looks weird.
It does. A little bit.
Also, I love the Big Book of Barry Ween. It's great. It's a great value. Everyone should go grab it. It's got all 4 trades in it. And
it's smaller. I don't like that it's smaller.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, it's not a huge thing, but I like...
Value-wise, I feel like it's...
Well, yeah.
It's a great
No,
value.
when Brent says smaller, he means like literally like the pages
are
are
shrunk.
It's
of
like
a
the difference
smaller
of like
size.
being 7 or 8 inches versus 9 or 8.5.
It's like manga size, but like
Yeah.
bigger manga size. Anyway, it is a great value, and my boss used to sell it to just about everyone that would come in the door that could handle crude humor. That when I worked at Olympic Cards and Comics, she would just like put it in everybody's hands. There are very few people that I've ever seen who, when she was like, "Can you handle like swearing and crude sexual humor?" and they're like, "Yeah," and then she handed it to them, and they like almost no one brought it back. Like it did happen, but it was really rare. So I think this is a great comic for people who appreciate humor and
Yeah, like I said, it's one of the things I
Especially-
use to sell people on comics.
farty, sexy humor. Farty, sexy humor.
Dick and fart jokes.
Yeah, but I do actually one day hope for a color edition of this because I think that'd be really interesting.
That would be interesting. Although I'm looking at the covers because I haven't pulled these books out in a while. I'm looking at volume 2, and the alien on the cover is pink, and in my head he's always been green,
Oh, it was always gray for me.
Yeah, gray for
like
me as well.
kind of a pale, not like a vivid green,
Yeah.
like a very pale kind of like pastel green.
I could see it.
And it's just very disconcerting to me. And like on a certain level, I don't know that I could handle this book being in color because I've read it so many times
Yeah.
in black and white.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it always is weird when you go back and recolor stuff, but I you know, it's very animatorly, it's very cartoonish in nature. It would be kind of cool to see it look like actual
I would love to see
animation cells.
I
or
would love to
something.
see a Barry Ween animated movie.
Yeah, that'd be
Apparently,
cool.
the rights got sold for it a long time ago, and nothing's ever happened.
that happens a lot.
Hooray for Limbo.
Yeah. Anyway,
It would need to be a spectacular team to pull it off well.
yeah.
Who would be the voice of Barry Ween? We
Batman.
wonder. Batman?
Kevin
Yeah.
Conroy, Will Arnett.
Kevin Conroy.
Uh,
telling you, Jeremy.
Maurice LaMarche doing his brain voice.
yeah. Let's get Phil Lamar to do it. He does every voice ever. So,
Or what's his name from Futurama?
oh yeah.
Billy West.
Yeah, Billy West.
Oh, I thought you were
Or
talking
Joe
about
DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio.
Oh, yeah.
the
No, obviously
vendor.
Phil Lamar would have to play Jeremy.
Yeah.
And Cree Summer would play Roxy.
Yeah,
I am rolling my eyes so hard.
I think
So
You
hard.
get Tara
you
Strong
don't
to do
even
Barry.
know.
I think-
that'd be funny.
Samuel L. Jackson probably would have to do Barry.
No.
No?
No.
All right, Morgan Freeman it is.
Jeremy, I'm telling you.
There was a time, Jeremy. Let's recommend some books
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that thing.
before we get more off topic. Brant, what do you want to read?
I want to read J.
Awesome.
Michael Straczynski's run on Thor.
Awesome.
Which I believe encapsulates volumes 1 through 3.
Yeah, the cut short.
I mean,
short.
at least it ends well.
Yeah.
Which I have a love question mark relationship with J. Michael Straczynski because I like a lot of his stuff, but it tends to not end well. And then there's
Yeah,
a
he
couple
kind of
things.
peters out.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think so, and I wonder, like, is it just that he's got like that horrible, like, wrong place, wrong time thing happening, where it's like, all
Yeah.
right, Jay, that's good work, J. Michael, but we've got other shit that needs to happen, so we're just going to end you out. And so, yeah, I wish he would have had more time, but I think this is a great, this is a rebooted Thor, basically, with a new paradigm. It involves one of the most spectacular confrontations between two Marvel heroes ever put to pen and paper, which is the return of Thor after Civil War, and him and Iron Man having some "I would have words with thee" as the line that Thor utters. Olivier
Does
Coipel?
yeah, Oliver Coipel.
Oh, is it really?
I think it's Oliver
I thought it was
Coipel.
Olivier.
Maybe it is Olivier Coipel. But
Anyway, fantastic art.
Yeah.
It really captures a great feeling for the And this was when they redesigned Thor too, to have kind of the more
The
chainmail
armor,
look.
yeah. The scale mail.
The look that he's rocking in the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Or at least in his first movie.
yeah. You know, scale mail Thor, Lady Loki, Heimdall is king.
Gotta love Lady Loki.
The death of Odin, all that stuff has happened, and it's a really fantastic read. And I just love the characterization. It really made me feel like I've read some Thor stuff before, but this was one of the first times that I read Thor, and I was just like super excited by it. So I actually was so excited that I bought some of it in hardcover, and I need to replace the rest of them with hardcover because I like it that much.
Good deal.
So yeah, that's what I recommend.
Yeah, there's a lot of good Thor stories, but this is always kind of ranked among one of my favorites because it's a really personal story with Thor because, you know.
And just to set this up a little bit, as I recall, Ragnarok has happened.
Right.
And like all the Norse gods have died.
Yeah.
Except Thor, who's still around. And he now has the Odin Force for the first time.
Well, he comes back in this story because he has been gone for so long.
He's been gone, and he like starts bringing back all the other gods.
And Asgard.
And and so it's kind of like a fresh start for Asgard, and things have changed.
And
Yeah.
it becomes problematic because Asgard is in Kansas.
Yeah.
Oklahoma?
Or Oklahoma,
Broxton. Where is it?
Broxton, Oklahoma.
Yeah. It's good. And
Cool
this
beans.
sets up all the stuff that would continue into Siege and then continue into the God Butcher, God Bomb story.
Jason
that we really
Aaron,
love.
Thor,
Jason
God
Aaron,
of Thunder
Thor.
run, which we
So-
talked about previously.
If you
And Fear
read...
Itself.
Yeah, Fear Itself as well. If you read all of that and you want to kind of go backwards, this is a good place to jump on to like fill in that middle bit with like Kid Loki and Fear Itself and Thor moving Asgard again.
Good times.
Sort of. So, yeah.
And Doctor Doom shows up, which is awesome.
Yes, always cool.
Oh, yeah, that's super cool.
And amazing art. I love the art in this, so definitely check it out. Cade, what'd you bring this week?
So I brought something that's been recommended on the show before. However, we have never recommended all of it, just only the first volume. And so this is a book called Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon, and
Who's that? Joss Whedon?
Was Joss Whedon
I'm not
guy?
familiar with his work.
you might know him from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
John Cassidy, right?
Angel.
He's the-
Yep, John Cassidy.
Wait, that
artist.
movie with Pee Wee Herman in it?
Yeah.
Buffy the Vampire
Yeah.
Slayer?
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. He wrote that.
Wow.
He did not. He wrote.
No, I know. I know.
He wrote the show. This one out of the movie. If anyone didn't know that
Wait.
there was a movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer before there was a TV show,
I thought he did write
He
that.
actually
No, yeah,
did
he wrote
write
and
that.
direct the movie.
He didn't direct it.
Yeah, he wrote it, though.
I didn't know
Okay.
he wrote it.
Yeah.
He
I knew
wrote-
he was involved.
He was involved in it.
Yeah, he wrote some of it, and then they changed a bunch of stuff, like the whole vampires flying thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, no,
Yeah.
that never happened in my script.
Yeah, I knew he was involved, but I didn't think he wrote. Like, I thought he wrote like the outline or something, or the
Well,
the
I
initial
mean,
pitch.
he
or
wrote,
something.
yeah, he wrote the script, and then they changed
So
stuff.
so he was involved with Buffy back in the 90s, and he hasn't really been doing anything since then. And so
Right.
this comic
Well, he also wrote. Don't forget the lauded Alien 4, Alien Resurrection.
That's true.
Don't forget.
that was the best one.
Another movie that apparently its original script and its final product were very wildly
I
deviant.
hate that
Well, I think
movie.
that was the case with the third movie as well.
And it was also basically the pilot for Firefly. If you go back and watch it now, you're like,
Yes.
what the fuck is this?
Oh god, now I have to go back. And
Yeah,
watch it.
Me
do it
too.
because the show there's that crew that Ron Perlman's in, right? Like Ron Perlman plays Jane in that movie, and
Basically.
and- yeah, no, I'm not joking. And there's
Jarvis.
there's this crew of this weird pirate ship that shows up in the middle of that movie to this space research lab to bring
Which movie is this?
Alien Resurrection. It's the fourth
Oh.
Alien movie. And the crew is basically like the pilot prototype team for Firefly, for like what would go on to be the Firefly cast.
What do you put in this shit? Battery acid? Only for color.
Yeah. The movie's not good. I'm just gonna say it. It's not good.
Fun.
It's
not
the
good.
kind of not good that can be good.
It's not good.
I agree.
In any case,
Winona Ryder is
Astonishing
in it,
X-Men
though,
Cade.
and I do
Anyway,
love Winona
yes,
Ryder.
okay. So, New X-Men, which
Yes.
is something I've talked about on the show before.
Yes.
Astonishing X-Men?
Astonishing X-Men.
Yes, New X-Men ended
Oh, okay.
and
Sorry.
became X-Men again, and the team from New X-Men became the Astonishing X-Men.
And that's Wolverine, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus
returning from the
shows
dead,
up.
Wolverine and Kitty
Pryde.
Pryde.
That's right.
Can I just make a slight tangent real quick? What the fuck is up with X-Men naming conventions? Why didn't they just fucking name them different teams? It's X-Men Blue, it's X-Men Gold, it's the exceedingly awesome X-Men, the astonishing X-Men, the whatever X-Men. So just like name them slightly different things so I know what fucking team it is.
Totally a Stan Lee-ism. Because Stan Lee was always the one that was like, he's the Incredible Hulk.
No, I know,
and
but
the
they
amazing
decided to,
Spider-Man.
No, I know, but then they were like,
X-Men.
well, there's going to be 17 teams of X-Men, but we're going to distinguish them through these really arbitrary and
that wasn't
incomprehensible.
It wasn't the
ways to
intention because it was Uncanny was going on for so long, and they were like, well, let's just do giant size X-Men #1 and we'll relaunch the book with a brand new title just called X-Men. And like that went for a long time, and then it was like X-Men, new X-Men, and X-Men Legacy, and then X-Men again.
That's what I'm saying. Just name slightly different teams so I don't have to wonder what color team they're on.
Yeah.
Or if they're astonishing.
That's
uncanny,
basically what
amazing.
X-Force
Well, that is what
and
Astonishing
X-Factor
is, actually.
What?
Blue team.
It was the different team.
No, I know that, but rather than call it X-Men, call them just X-Force, X-Factor, X-something, so that I know that what team it is.
X-Guys.
X-Guys, Excalibur.
Well, this one's a different team because it's the Astonishing
I know, that's the part I don't like!
I really liked Excalibur back in the day.
Yeah.
There's been runs on Excalibur that are quite good.
So it's the team from New X-Men.
Yep.
So Emma
Plus.
Frost and Cyclops as co-leaders.
Yep.
Then Wolverine, Kitty, Beast, and Colossus.
Yep. In space.
And this was the team that all the limited series at the time that came out were using this team as the official X-Men team to deal with those limited series.
All right, cool. Is there anything else that you want to say about the book, Cade?
I don't think so. It's a good book.
It's
an
awesome
pitched
series.
it on the show before. This is all 24 issues plus giant-sized Astonishing #1. And that concludes Whedon's run before Warren Ellis took over.
Yeah, and this is, it's got space stuff in it. It's got Return of Dead characters and romantic relationship stuff and all the stuff about X-Men that everyone loves or loves to hate.
It also has a great opening sequence where it's like what the interior monologue of the different X-Men are, Wolverine is just thinking beer.
It has, we've talked about some of the great moments in this one.
Well, it makes Cyclops an awesome character in a way that he isn't necessarily always written.
Yeah, sometimes he's awesome.
Like, you read this book and you're like, holy shit, I forgot Cyclops could be cool.
Or you just hate him as much as I do, and even in this book you're like, he's just less of a douche now, but I still don't like him.
Well, he looks like brown-haired Elijah Snow.
What I really love is when people bring up the fact that, like, you could actually control your powers if you wanted Cyclops. You're just too lazy. And he's like, I know. These are my favorite Cyclops moments. Like, literally my favorite is he's like, yeah, I'd rather just see everything in shades of red.
Well, he
all
shoots
the time.
punches from the punch dimension out of his eyes.
How? So that, I didn't know that.
Well,
I missed that much.
they bring it up, like, all these other X-Men, like, learned to control their powers, and, like, you didn't even try. You just put on a visor.
That's a good point.
And so, you could probably actually control it if you wanted to. And he's like, no.
I'm too busy strategizing and stuff.
It's different, though.
My dad left me.
And
life is
then
hard.
I got pushed out of an airplane.
And,
Wolverine made me a convertible.
Yeah. So I like the series. It's got some great Cyclops moments. It's got some amazing Wolverine moments in it, but and not in the way that other books have amazing Wolverine moments. These are like funny Wolverine moments and good stuff.
Yeah.
I like the series. Everyone should read it. And the art's great.
Cool beans.
It took forever to come out.
It did.
And reading it in singles was awful. But now that it's all collected.
Well, the first 12 or 13 didn't.
Yeah.
But also it has Cat Beast.
It does have Cat Beast.
My favorite Beast. That wasn't animated series Beast.
I like Dark Beast.
I never really cared for Cat Beast.
I like Dark Beast. I prefer, weird, wild, hair-horned, fuzzy blue beast from the Avengers.
Yes.
Was he on West Coast Avengers or just regular Avengers?
Regular Avengers. Pretty sure.
All right.
He was on West Coast.
He might have been on both.
With Wonder Man.
Yeah.
Goliath.
They were best buds.
I know. I actually found that issue that I had been talking about.
Oh, nice.
Wonder Man Annual #2.
Yeah, one of the first comics. Was that the first Marvel comic you ever read, or just?
It was the comic that got me into comics.
That's right.
Frame
Anyway.
that sucker.
Yeah, put it up on the wall. Toby,
So
what do you want to pitch this week?
Awkward. I was also going to pitch Astonishing X-Men.
No, you were not.
I am not even
No,
lying.
you were
It is
not.
right here on my list of comics. that
Get
I'm gonna
outta
pitch.
here.
I swear to God.
Liar.
So
That doesn't mean you get out of doing your homework, sir.
So I'm going to
Oh my
put an
gosh.
Audible, and I'm just going to pitch the next thing on my list.
The first time I don't tell you guys ahead of time what I'm bringing
Yeah.
is the week Toby brings the same thing as me.
No, it's cool. I'll pitch something else. I have like at least 7 or 8 other pitches just written down on this list.
Yeah.
Not even including all the things that I've pitched once that I'm going to bring back. So
Nice.
not even a problem. So I'm going to pitch 6 issues from the middle of a fucking run.
Yay.
I am pitching issues 16 through 21 of Secret Avengers. Not the current volume, but the one before that started in 2010. And this has been collected in Secret Avengers Volume 3. Run the mission, don't get seen, save the world. Written by Warren Ellis. So just kind of in the middle of Secret Avengers, the person who was writing it moved on. Warren Ellis came in, did 6 issues, and then left again. And these issues are freaking incredible. Just awesome, like, deep cover spy stories with Steve Rogers, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and, like, Black Widow and Hawkeye. And
Moon Knight? Is this
Moon Knight's in there. Beast is in there. And they're like running secret missions in Eastern Europe.
Is Nova in this series? Is this the one
Nova
that
showed up
was
like
in?
very briefly.
He was in the first
beginning of the
5.
series, not
Oh, okay.
in this arc.
And Valkyrie was on that team too, at least in the first 5.
Yeah, I think she's on later. I'm not sure if she's in this arc. Venom also joins the team
That's
much
right.
later, but this is just
But
kind
it's
of like a
different Venom.
Agent Venom,
6-issue.
right?
It's-
Yeah.
yeah.
Agent Venom. This is kind of just like a 6-issue little snippet that Warren Ellis came in, and it was just really weird and awesome and very reminiscent of what he would do later on Moon Knight itself.
Cool.
When he like relaunched Moon Knight. And it's kind of the same deal. Like he came in briefly, did a bunch of stories, and then left.
Who was that masked man? I mean, Warren Ellis.
Yeah, right. And it's just kind of really cool. Like these are things that happen in the Marvel universe that you usually don't hear about,
Sweet.
and it's really cool and it's a lot of fun.
Do you know who does the art on this series?
You know what? Not off the top of my head. I will look it up while you do your pitch, and then I will
Okay.
let people know.
So, I remember a couple weeks ago when someone emailed me what week it was in the weeks of Image, and I was like, yeah, now I'll know
forgotten.
it. I did. I forgot. I don't know.
I'm
what
pretty
week it
sure
is
that we're
again.
on 16 now.
I thought last time was 16.
Well, even if it is, that means you're only in the early teens of 52 weeks.
No, I have plenty of Image books to recommend. That's not the problem. The problem is that I keep forgetting because I don't keep a track. I'm not keeping track. Anyway, I did bring another Image book, and I'm very excited about it because it's one of my favorite books, and it didn't start at Image, but it ended up at Image, like a lot of books do. And it's gone through some growing pains and a lot of iterations, and it's a difficult series to kind of explain where to start for people, which is something I have a really hard time with because I like the series for a couple of different reasons. One, I like series with female characters. I like series with female characters that distort the trope of what the female character in that series their normal reaction to things. And I love 80s horror slasher movies to death. Movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and Friday the 13th and stuff. And so this is a book. It was written by Tim Seeley, and it's a play off of all the genres, and it is called Hack Slash. And I really like Hack Slash. It has problems. It has problems. It has art problems, really, more than anything else, because it's an indie book, and it was a real indie book before it was at Image. It was, I think, at DDP, maybe, or it was somewhere.
Devils do.
Yeah. It was somewhere small before it got to Image, and so some of that early stuff, the art is rough, and even when it goes to Image, some of it's really tough. But the worst part is, once they got to Image, they relaunched it at #1, but it in no way was a #1. It was basically just a continuation of everything that had already happened with Hack Slash, so it's really hard for me to pitch that first Image trade as a #1. But, however, they did do a prequel called Hack Slash My First Maniac, which is what I'm pitching today. Yeah, a prequel. My First Maniac is a 4-issue miniseries, and it tells the story of kind of how Cassie Hack decided to be a slasher hunter. Cassie Hack as a young girl, her mom was very protective of her because their dad left, and so she wanted to be this overprotective mom. And one day, Cassie finds out that all of the bullies that were beating her up in school and treating her like garbage, her mom was cutting them up and putting them in the cafeteria food and feeding them to the rest of the students because she was the lunch lady. And so her mom then, instead of going to jail, shoves her head into a boiling pot of oil or gravy or something and kills herself in front of Cassie.
Wow.
Yay! Not fucked up at all. And then years later, when Cassie's in foster care, her mom returns from the dead, as slashers, quote unquote, do. This is set in a universe in which basically there are this paradigm of slashers where there are people that cannot be killed, like Mike Myers and Jason and Freddy Krueger, and all of those guys are mentioned offhandedly like they exist. Cassie actually fights against Evil Ernie and the Reanimator and Chucky in miniseries, in the early miniseries days of Hack Slash. And so her mom comes back from the dead as like a mutilated slasher horror movie monster, a la 80s slasher movies, and Cassie has to kill her mom at the school to protect these girls that, even though Cassie doesn't really like them, so all of that happens before My First Maniac. My First Maniac is then the telling of how Cassie decides to run away from foster care because she's haunted by this visage of her mom coming back to kill her, and she wants to make right with the world and doesn't want to be a slasher but wants to help people, so she strikes out on the road to go hunt slashers and kill movie monsters. And it's kind of a cool subversion of the trope where in those 80s slasher movies, the hot young sexy girl was always the one that was being chased by the monster, and she's doing the chasing. So some of the art problems where it's like, why is Cassie always drawn like super sexy and wearing skimpy clothes, is like, it's kind of a play on that. I know it doesn't excuse that, and at some points it's just fucking atrocious, like how many panty shots they can fit into one issue. I blame the artists for that and not Tim Seeley, but I'm sure it's also somewhat to blame on Mr. Seeley. But I still think the series is worth reading, and a lot of my female friends who enjoy horror movies and 80s slasher movies also really love this series. So although it has some problems, I think the series is really cool, and I don't know a better place to start than this, because the miniseries are difficult because they don't really feel like a cohesive story, and then the first ongoing picks up after the miniseries, so if you don't read those, it's kind of hard. But this is a good place to kind of like whet your appetite, and it does get better than this. And right now, there is a series going on called Hack Slash Son of Samhain at Image, which is not written by Tim Seeley and not drawn by anyone who ever drew Hack Slash before. And it's awesome. So it's like worth getting through everything just to get to this new stuff. And there's enjoyable moments in the early stuff as well. But so check out Hack Slash if you like 80s horror movies and badass goth chicks with baseball bats beating up axe murderers, basically.
Awesome.
It's fun.
So this is what I get for pulling an audible and pitching a different book than the one I had planned on. I think I actually pitched the wrong book.
Oh.
Because the illustrator for this volume is Jamie McKelvey, who's not who I was thinking of. I think the arc that I was planning to pitch is actually the volume after this when Rick Remender takes over. But that's okay. I'm going to pitch it anyway. So,
okay.
Volume 3, Warren Ellis, Jamie McKelvey, Secret Avengers. And maybe I'll pitch the Rick Remender stuff later, because that is also really good.
Nice.
And he takes over after Alice leaves with issue 21.1.
Ooh.
21.
So, Brant,
so many numbers.
what would you like to vote for?
Well, now I'm really perplexed about what Secret Avengers that is, and now I want to vote for it because
it's still the same team. It's just the Eastern Europe stuff happens after. This is stuff with like a hidden city under the earth that somebody's planning to do terrible things with, and the Avengers have to stop.
But does it have Beast in them?
Yeah, I think so. It's still the same team.
It's the same book. It's just 5 issues earlier than the arc that you were talking about, and it's written by Warren Ellis.
Yes.
I want to read that. I started Secret Avengers back in the day, and I didn't keep up with it.
This is the second series of Secret Avengers, correct?
No, this is the first series of Secret Avengers. It starts with I think Ed Brubaker run, where they like go to Mars
because
and stuff with the Secret
the
Empire.
the Hydra crown or whatever. The hell it is.
Serpent
I'm
crown.
sorry. I'm thinking of Secret Warriors.
Oh,
Okay, no.
This is
the first volume of Secret
Avengers.
Avengers.
I was like,
It starts with Ed Brubaker and Nick Spencer.
Yeah.
Then Ellis takes over for 6 issues. Then Remender takes over and writes the last 26 issues or something like that.
Okay. I no longer
And
want to vote for this
it's
one.
all really good.
you no longer want it.
Well, I love Secret Warriors, and that's what I kept thinking that this was spinning out of, and then I was like, wait, that is not right.
No, and then when Marvel Now happened,
Right.
Volume 2 started,
Right.
and that's the Black Widow,
Yep.
Hawkeye, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. arc. So, Brandon's voting for Secret Avengers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cade, what are you voting for?
Thor.
I am going to vote for X-Men.
Fuck all of you. Why? Seriously? Every week. Every fucking time. Yeah,
Your vote matters, Charlie.
I know. It always does matter. I gotta go with Thor. On this one. This is an amazing run on Thor, and I honestly, if you're gonna start Thor anywhere and you don't want to start with old Walter Simonson stuff, this is
Which is really good.
Which is great, but there are a lot of people that can't handle
Old-timey Thor.
old stuff, and they can't.
Well, it's not. I mean,
Well,
I
this
have-
is the perfect place to start
Yeah.
Thor because it's a relaunch,
Right, and
of
it's-
these these characters are coming back
Yeah.
from not existing.
And I understand why people wouldn't want to start with the Simonson stuff. It is really jarring for new readers. So this is a lot more palatable. It's a lot more modern. And the writing is modern. The art is more modern. The colors are beautiful. It's great. So if you want to read the last 10 years of Thor, this is where you start. So I'd like to read the first 3 volumes of Thor.
Awesome. And we were talking earlier, we're going to try something a little bit different this week. If you have a question or a comment for us or about the work, send it to us before, let's say, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time next Monday.
Yeah.
So we have time to look
which would
over them
be
before we
November
record.
3rd.
Yeah, November 3rd. And we will read some of them on the air.
Yeah,
and
we
respond
want
to them.
maybe get some listener questions. And if you're playing along at home and you just read Thor and you have questions about what we think about specific characters or specific scenes or something, shoot us an email or a tweeter at us or Facebook us.
Contact
talk
View
about
from the Gutters at ViewFRTH Gutters on Twitter or our Facebook page, View from the Gutters.
Yeah.
Just reach out to us.
I think I just scored a recommendation hat trick.
Did you really?
I think so.
What was the one before?
It was, Hikatea,
Yeah.
Barry
Oh,
Ween,
holy
and now
shit.
Thor.
Bam!
God, you're on a roll.
Damn.
Barry
we bring
Ween
you
counts
on
as
here?
my pick, though, because I brought it 3 of the 5 times it was pitched.
It's all about timing, kid. Good timing.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Send us some feedback, questions, and whatever. And we'll see you next week.
Hey, bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for listening to View from the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also link us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.